Hi everyone. So I thought I'd give a perspective on what I'm seeing across electorates from yesterday's federal election. So Labor seems to have had a really good campaign, but partly because the Liberal Party was seen in such a negative light. So it seems to have swapped a lot of Liberal voters over to the Labor Party. Now, reading it in the wrong way and saying, oh, the Greens went backwards. The Greens didn't go backwards and the Independents didn't go backwards. Part of what the story was yesterday, that was the number of seats that the Liberal Party, through preferences, delivered for the Labor Party. So the Liberals have a tendency to put independents, some independents, who they see as Teals or Teal-backed candidates or Climate 200 backed candidates, after Labor, so that the Labor Party tends to get their preferences. Now, there's a reason why the Liberal how to vote card matters. Because if they are handing out how to vote cards, Liberal Party voters tend to follow their how to vote cards at a remarkably high rate. So they tend to deliver seats to whoever they preference if they fall to third. What happened yesterday was that the Liberal Party's vote was so low in some seats that they were falling to third, which meant that their preferences were actually electing the Labor candidate over an independent, progressive independent, like one of the Teal candidates, or a Green candidate. So it's really interesting to have a look at, for example, if you have a look at Griffith, where the Greens suffered a minor swing, but Labor got a swing, but they get elected on Liberal preferences. Now, if the Liberal Party, as they did in the past, had put Labor last, they would have elected the Greens member. Now, the same in the electorate of Bean. If you have a look at the results from there, the Independent loses because they were preferenced after Labor from the Liberal Party. So in the projection, what we'll see is that the Labor Party will hold that seat. The same with Franklin in Tasmania. Putting the Independent last, the Liberals putting the Independent last means that the Labor Party will hold that seat. What that means going forward is it frees up a lot of Labor resources. So for the Liberal Party to actually start concentrating and winning back some seats, they need Labor to not spend as many resources and people resources and financial resources on those seats that they compete with against Labor. So those are the seats like Menzies and Aston, etc., in Victoria, for example, and then looking across New South Wales and Queensland now, a lot more seats. To basically, for the Liberals to starting to compete on an even keel against the Labor Party, they will need to divert Labor resources. And the easiest way to do that is to have what's happening right now for Labor to actually start spending resources in seats that they would consider safe, like Bean in the ACT, so that it actually takes some of that financial resources and people resources away from the seats that they're trying to win. So what's happening at the moment with the Teals, for example, in Melbourne, I'm in Melbourne, so just talking a lot about Kooyong and Goldstein, etc., and even Wannon, looking at Flinders, etc. What happens there is that it diverts Liberal Party resources, financial and volunteers, and we saw a huge number of polling booths without Liberal volunteers yesterday in seats that they considered not marginal. So they were pulling out people resources and sending them to those seats to try and defend those seats. Labor doesn't have that problem. They do have a lot more volunteers, but because they have those seats, which they know that the Liberal Party preferences will deliver them the seat, they don't really have to worry about those seats as much. So a lot of their campaign efforts can go into those marginal Labor Liberal seats and win those seats, knowing full well that the Liberal Party will be spending a lot of money on Kooyong, a lot of money on Goldstein, Flinders, Wannon, all of those seats, which leave them with a huge advantage. Now, I think at some point, the Liberal Party has to consider whether they keep doing what they're doing and hand the Labor Party seats for free, essentially, by giving them preferences, or whether they make Labor actually spend some resources in their seats, which gives them a fighting chance in their seats. It's a big ask for the Liberal Party because of the shift that has happened within the Liberal Party and how much they've spent their time attacking the Greens as extreme or the Teals as extreme, etc., for them to turn around and basically put Labour last. So they'll have to run the narrative that Labour is their real enemy for government, so therefore they have to start putting Labour last. We did see a shift in the Liberal Party this time by preferencing One Nation, not last. So that was a big shift for the Liberal Party after John Howard said that they would never ever preference the for One Nation. So it can change. And I think, and I suspect, that if they actually wanted to have a real chance of winning some of those seats back, that they actually need to start thinking about changing their preference tactics and making Labour actually fight for the seats that they need to, that they consider now safe. Now, if you look at Griffith, for example, much easier for Labour to hold on to as long as the Liberal Party falls to third. For the Greens to win, they either need to finish ahead of Labour and Liberal, or for the Liberals to come first. Actually, no, I got that wrong. They just need to finish second ahead of Labour. If the Greens finish, or an independent finishes second ahead of the Liberals, it means that they lose because the Liberal Party preferences deliver the seat to Labour. So something for the Liberals to think about. If they really want to win those seats back, they need to switch how they preference and eat up some of the resources that Labour doesn't have to spend on their what they would now consider safe seats. The Liberal Party needs to make them more marginal so that Labour actually has to fight on several different fronts, which also makes messaging very difficult. I also wanted to just check in on some results. There is quite an interesting result, which I think is a lot more interesting than anyone else is reading. And that is in a seat in Melbourne. It's in the regions. And that is, I'm not talking about Flinders, but keep an eye on Monash. So Monash is a very interesting seat. And if you look at the votes, I'm just looking for Monash. I'm sorry, I didn't get that ready before I started. If you actually look at the votes as they fall in Monash, and I was talking to someone who lives in Monash at the moment this morning, and looking at the votes as they fall, just on first preferences, Russell Broadbent got 10% of the vote, who is the sitting MP who's now lost pre-selection and sat as an independent. If you look at his vote of 10%, that seems to be directly from the Liberal Party. So a drop of, actually the Liberal Party got a drop of 5%. And where else did he get that from? And, there's a couple of, so there's a Labour Party vote that's gone backwards, but that seems to have been picked up by the independent. So the independent there is Deb Leonard. She's on 17% of the vote at the moment. The Greens have gone backwards, but they still have 4.5%. And Legalised Cannabis Party is on 3.3%. I'm not quite sure where they preference or whether they even hand it out. There is a big difference between a party preferencing someone when they hand out and versus not handing out. So when they don't hand out, the preferences can spray depending on the kind of voter that they attract. Now, the mathematics in this is very interesting. The Labour Party has 20%. Now, the Labour Party would have put the independent before the Liberals, I assume. That doesn't make sense for them not to. And One Nation has about 7% of the vote. On the numbers, we have the independent, Deb Leonard. There's only a small difference between her and the Labour candidate, so there's about 3%, which she, I presume, will make up on Greens preferences and legalised cannabis preferences. That's just a presumption. I'm pretty sure that will end up happening. Greens voters tend to go for independents before the others. There might be a bit of leakage to Labour, but I don't think it would be as much. Don't worry too much about Russell Broadbent's preferences. Where he got his vote from, 10%, seems to be from the Liberal Party. And you know what? What it'll do is it's reduce the Liberal Party's primary votes and it'll return back at a reduced rate. So the Liberals only have 32%, which falls into the danger category for them. So with the preferences, all the independent needs to do is to jump Labour, and I think she will jump Labour in this seat. And if she gets enough votes and leakage, to get her from One Nation, etc. And you know what? If One Nation didn't hand out their votes tend to spread. So we don't quite know where their preferences are going. So it's all looking very, very interesting. So this is a seat to watch. It's one of those seats where I think the independent can win from third position. So keep an eye on that one. There are a couple of other seats which are interesting, which I'll touch back on later. But back to my main point, I think if the Liberal Party had, as they used to do in the past, preferenced put Labor last, it would have meant that Labor would have probably not gotten an extra 10 seats. And I can run through them in a later post, and I'll talk about the seats that the Liberals seems to have delivered for Labor, which is very, very interesting. There would have been a lot more independents and Greens in Parliament if the Liberal Party hadn't preferenced the Labor Party, which would have made life a little bit more difficult for the Labor Party. And also, it would have meant in the future that Labor would have to spend more resources to try and win those seats. And also, it just frees up a bit more volunteers, I suppose. It won't free up as many volunteers that Labor can send to those Labor Liberal marginals. Something to think about. It will be a very interesting next 3 years to work out who the Liberals get as leader and how they moderate their policies. But more than all of that is how they will have to deal with how they can win some of those seats back with the lack of resources that they will have. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.